Hello everyone, and welcome to the Hints of Hisui podcast. I'm Wolf Tycho, and I'm here with King85 and Tomix9 Tomix, and maybe Ethy later.
Maybe.
TBD.
Yeah, we haven't heard from him, and it's currently like the night before the podcast is supposed to come out, so we're just doing it now. I don't know.
Hopefully he's okay.
Oh, hopefully. I'm thinking he's just asleep because of like morning shifts and like stuff like that. If I had to guess. Plus, on Twitter, he said back to bed at 1 p.m., so...
Yeah, I saw that tweet and I was like, we're supposed to record tonight, right?
Yep. But, yeah, I guess for this week... did anything happen with me? I mean, I've been going to school. I'm now, like, 2 weeks through.
Fun. Or not fun, I don't know.
It's school. It's neither fun nor not fun. It's kind of just...
That's wild. I hated school so much.
Yeah, I hated school, but then I found out I hated university more, so...
I see. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I really don't like so far about this year is AP Stats. I already talked about this a little bit with, like, how they have us do the notes outside of class. But so, how it works is we get the notes that we have to do for homework, but
Oh, he's gone! You pissed him off! It's like, I ain't listening to his high school shit.
No.
I'm guessing he just has to take a call, but Andy, we can
okay.
continue talking about life if you want for a bit, while he handles life.
That's pretty funny. Oh, he's back.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Okay. I couldn't, for some reason, dude, I've been having audio issues lately. I literally had to buy new Bluetooth headphones. I only have audio in one ear of my headphones. Like, literally, dude, everything has broken for me today. Every single piece of technology that I own has broken for me today, I swear to God. Sorry. Continue on with whatever was being talked about.
So, AP Stats. You know, we do our notes outside of class for homework. But that's not it. So he'll give us the homework, and then he'll go, alright, and by the next class you also have to watch... Oh wait, no, sorry. You have to have the homework assignment done for homework. You get given that. And then you have to watch the notes for the next lesson that same day.
See, but shouldn't you be doing the homework in class?
Oh no, when we go to class, instead of doing the homework, we do quizzes. For the, homework, the thing we did over the homework. It's fucking nonsensical.
I mean, it sounds tough.
So this sounds...
in terms of study, it makes sense.
This sounds a lot more like a college class, right? Is the homework, like, graded at all? Or do you just... Is it graded on, like, completion?
A little bit. I mean, the homework's only 1 point.
So, like, yeah, this sounds like very much like a college class where they're like, okay, do the homework. You don't actually have to do it, but here's the assigned questions. But if you don't do the homework, you're probably just screwed for the quiz or whatever assigned or, like, actual test that you have to take.
But yeah, the big thing with, like, homework, which also is why they're super annoying, there was one homework assignment that took people, like, 2 hours to complete. Because it's, like, 30 questions. I think the shortest we've gotten is, like, 17 questions. Which, I mean,
how much time do you have to do these?
We have the day we have the class every 2 days. So we have that night and the next night to work on the notes and homework. So it's fine, but you also have other classes.
Yeah, that just sounds like a very involved class. I feel like I don't know if I agree with that much, like, busy work for, like, a high school class. Because, like, if that, like, that's totally, like, an understandable amount of work to ask, like, a college student. Because you're not at like, in school 24/7. But, like, in high school, you literally, like, you go to school in the morning. You are in school for the entire, like, day. and then you leave. There's no time during that school period where you should be assumed to like be able to do homework. So
Yeah.
that's why I think that might be a little much personally, but I did have classes. I took like calculus where that was like a workload expected of me. But that
But there's
really
also like
sucks.
how the quizzes work for each lesson. So they're group quizzes, so you at least get to work with a group.
Oh,
The problem
okay.
is though, he doesn't grade each person in the group. He only grades one person in the group, and it's random.
Okay. I mean, well, that
The
makes
reason
sense.
It makes sense. The reason why that's a problem, though, is because he doesn't look at your homework, he doesn't guide you through the notes, and then he could not, there's a, like, 1/4 chance he looks over your quiz. So you could be doing stuff, like, wildly wrong, and he would not know. And cannot, like,
Well,
help course correct you onto the right path.
that's true. That is, yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to like relate this to like when I took calc in high school. We had like, they weren't quizzes, but we had like group worksheets that sound like very similar to what you're doing. And with that, you could work with a group of up to 4 people. Actually, I think you might have been like the entire. I think you could only do 4 people. But then like each person at the end would like turn it in, and if you didn't get the group worksheet done in class, it was like your homework for the night. So that's very interesting. Yeah, I don't know this. And you're also like assuming, do you get to choose your groups, or are they like,
Oh, no.
oh, that sucks. That sucks because you could just be screwed with like the idiots in the
Yep.
class.
Or, like, the group that I've had, because you're stuck with the group you have for an entire unit. So if you get screwed over, you're screwed over for a whole unit of group quizzes. But,
Are you able to like talk to the teacher about like, now this gets into like snitchy rat territory, which
Yeah.
and I
Well,
would
the
totally
thing
not do
is-
it, but like if you're legit, like you have no team members that are like pulling their part of the work, and your like grade is dependent on it, then like you kind of should probably tell a teacher.
I don't think you can. But, no, I mean, my group, it's not like they're bad students or aren't pulling their weight. We're all, like, we all have a good balance of people in the group, if that makes sense.
Are you saying there's like, so
It's a lot of people that don't talk much.
Oh no! Yeah, someone's just gotta take the reins on that one and just go, because like that's so tough. That's like literally
You gotta go
being in a
stream
room.
mode and just start yapping.
Legit, like,
Yeah.
and this sounds like your average like conversation with a bunch of software engineers. Like somebody just has to take the conversation and run with it, because otherwise you're not gonna talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, just before this, I did a workshop for an audition for like the school musical that's happening, and I figured out, yeah, I'm not doing this.
Oh.
A, because it would have been impossible to fit in with my schedule, because I have an internship coming up with a freelance videographer, and I also have my part-time job at the movie theater. And other stuff, I'm just like, I'm not gonna try and offend in the musical with that. On top of, I would not be able to like get everything I would want out of that experience. I'm not a great singer. Especially because, the song they were having us sing was tenor, if you know anything about music. I can't
Isn't that
sing
really
tenor.
high?
Yeah?
Yeah. That's all
No,
I know.
and I was just like, fuck this.
You could assume I don't think I'd be very good at that either.
No.
So-
And then it's like, we had a dancing portion. I was like, oh, I feel comfortable with this. Oh, goddamn, I forgot why I quit doing dance. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
But I think, other than that, I mean, that's most. Voltion posted a new game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
yesterday.
very
I did see
exciting.
that.
Yeah, what was it? Keep Looking.
It's like a horror game, right?
Yeah, it was originally made for both Micro Jam 021 and Solo Dev Jam number 4 over the course of a weekend.
That's cool.
Yeah. I may check it out, may not, we'll see. But yeah, anything with you guys?
I
Yes.
guess yeah. Well, okay, you can go first.
Okay. Well, I also have a lot to yap about because this mysterious vacation that I like didn't want to reveal to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm back. I can talk
Nice.
about where I actually went now, and I could yap forever and ever and ever about this. But I actually went to New York City and watched the U.S. Open for tennis for the first few days of the tournament. And it is, dude, I love tennis so much. It's so fun to watch. I know that's gonna sound crazy to a lot of people, but I had so much fun. It was a lot. There's a lot of action packed into 2 days, but it was great. And I hope you guys understand the reason why I didn't say it, because like you could have easily like, had I said, okay,
well-
I'm going to the US Open, like you could
That's
go.
identifiable.
That is identifiable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Very identifiable.
like, although you probably wouldn't have seen me, you could have if you like really tried. And I'm not
Yeah,
like,
not
I'm not
worth
trying to be
it.
spotted in the wild. Sorry, y'all. Like, absolutely not. Like, honestly, if someone comes up to me and asks, "Are you Caterade 5 in the wild?" I will literally say no.
No, one time someone asked me on the school bus if I was Andy, and I just like froze. I was just like, huh? Turns out he was just like someone who knew me, like, somewhat from like associate friend group online.
Oh.
But it was still like what the hell? Because if you don't know, I am not. People don't call me Andy in real life. So I was just chilling on the school bus, and it's like, hey, are you Andy? I'm like, huh?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I had like a really funny experience like that in Japan. I was just walking down like a street of like Japanese bars, izakayas after work, and then this like Japanese guy looks at me and he's like, "Tom?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I've never seen this guy. Did I once go like drinking and lose my memory? And oh god, what does this guy know about me?"
Does
then,
he
like-
know the milk conversation?
God.
And I'm like, yes. And he's like, "Tom?" And I'm like, "Yes, Tom." And then it turns out he just guessed my name because I'm a white person. And he was
That's
drunk
what?
and he ended up taking a photo with me because he was quite proud of himself.
Oh my
Oh my-
god.
That gave me
That
a heart
is-
attack. Because like I've been drunk and I've done some things that I probably shouldn't. I was like, oh god.
That is the best outcome of that situation
Yeah.
That's
that I've ever
crazy.
heard.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. The New York City was fun. We had a few days before as well, just to like explore the city, and it was. I mean, I had a blast, but I'm like fucking exhausted. So that's where I've been. That's why I haven't streamed. I literally have not played a Pokemon game the entire week. So this is gonna be a really fun episode, and I have not thought about Forgotten Saint, which we're gonna talk about in today's episode, in a long ass time. So
Oh,
we'll see how it
God, are we gonna
goes.
talk about? Well, maybe
But,
we'll talk about. I don't know.
Yeah. Go play tennis, people. Like, it's actually so fun.
If you want to.
Yeah. I guess in terms of my life, I haven't really played many games. I was like doing my best to finish Forgotten Saint last night, so I only finished it like 6 hours ago, I think.
Dude,
My
at least you
God.
finished it. I didn't even finish it.
You were very close. It's fine.
Yeah, I was like 10 minutes off, and then I just watched Ethy play the rest of it.
But yeah. But in terms of like life, it's just been work, but recently there's been a big typhoon heading towards Japan. And it's probably like about 1 day away from affecting where I live. So looking forward to that. I got a text today from my boss saying like there will be heavy rain today, so please stay home if you don't feel safe. So yeah.
Fun.
Fun.
Oh,
Crazy
also,
weather.
I have like, I don't talk about this a lot because like I don't talk about my real life job a lot because it's like it's actually like I don't know. There's not a lot to talk about, but my team's being disbanded.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm not laid off. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm just getting moved to a different team, but it's actually really sad because I really like the team I was on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's like my actual, like, because Andy talks about school out here, so I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
I got work. I'm not about to talk about what work I do because then again, that's potentially revealing information that I don't want revealed on the internet. So, but yeah,
That's why I'm not going out here going, this specific teacher is a jackass. Or like, stuff like that. I feel like just saying, like, I have an AP stats class. If you can find me based off of that information, I think I'm more impressed than anything.
that's crazy. Yeah, no, I'm not about to be like, hey guys, I have tickets for this specific row, this section, this seat in Arthur Ashe Stadium tonight. Come find me. Like, no, please don't. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I guess I hope your new team goes well. It just kind of sucks with that thing.
Oh,
kind of
actually,
stuff, 'cause
yeah,
you have
yeah.
to-
Well, I guess there's more to this. So when I was an intern, I'm going back to the team that I was on when I was an intern. So
Oh,
I already know the people.
That's nice.
that's good.
Yeah, it was like kind of like the obvious. It's like when they said our team was disbanded and they were moving everybody to different teams. I was like, okay, well, I pretty much like the managers are horrible at like keeping secrets as well, and they were like trying to like. They're like, Cade, how would you feel if you moved back to this team? And I'm like, yeah, I'd be fine with that. So I'm glad. I know there are some other people on the team that are not happy with their reassignments, but I am pretty happy with it. So good for me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds like a decent outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we want to talk about the game then?
Actually,
Unless there's something else to talk about.
there's one last topic we can kind of touch on, and it's because there was kind of. It's funny that the one time when I did a joke apology is when I probably got the most criticism out of all the episodes. I mean, that's not saying much, we haven't really gotten much criticism. But. Didn't you guys see the comments? Do you know
I
what I'm
did see the
referring to?
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like,
Just I think in
man-
general, and I think this is something we all need to keep in mind, not just Andy, but I guess you know, like developers do watch this, and we were even talking about that last episode. So I guess just keep in mind what kinds of things you say, or more importantly, how you say it. We talk about giving feedback a lot, and we normally talk about other people giving feedback, but in this podcast, we're giving like an hour-long piece of feedback.
Yeah.
If it's not handled carefully, it's gonna come across quite rough to the person receiving it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
also, like, one thing Kenny said in, like, having it be a more balanced review, to me, I'm like, I can't really make up positives that I don't feel about the game.
But I feel
mean,
like even
it's-
that comment
it's
already is too much. Because imagine you're watching and then someone says, I can't really make up positives about your game. It kind of stings.
I don't. Yeah, I think there's. Yeah, I think we were definitely a little. I like. Everybody was, including myself, was probably a little over negative, in the last episode, and yeah, I'm really sorry for that. I mean, look, we're all out here. I think we're all all experienced, at giving feedback to fan games. Generally, we all, like, at least 3 of us stream, and we do give feedback for the games, and I think it just goes to show, like, how difficult it is to give good constructive feedback, especially on projects where some of us were more negative than others. And I think it's a testament to how, number one, like, feedback is really hard to give, and number two, at least I commit to being better in terms of giving more constructive feedback and how I give that feedback.
Well, for me, like with the last episode, I was not viewing it in the lens of I am telling a review about this game. I am telling a thoughtful, thought out feedback. It was merely me explaining my experience playing the game and my personal opinions. Like, if I were to do an actual review, it would have been, and I am planning on doing a post on the thread, and it will be worded a lot differently. Because a review is more, like, how I do it is, that is, okay, what were you aiming for? How is your vision? How did that kind of go wrong? Where my personal opinions go, how would I have done it? There's a distinction between that.
Well, yeah, I think
Mm.
like that's totally fair, but I think especially like in with a platform that we have and how we were talking
Right.
about these games, we have to be aware as well that like the developer's most likely going to see this as well and take it as feedback on their game, even if it's more of just a general discussion on a game.
Yeah,
So
I think like
yeah, I think we need to be a little bit more careful about that.
as much as we want this to be, I think, just like a nice conversation between friends and us to like shoot the shit, talk about random crap. I need to keep in mind the context that this is going to be watched by people. I think the easiest way to sort of think about it is just to like kind of flip it and think if you saw someone say that same thing about your game, even if it doesn't apply to your game, because obviously your game's going to be completely different. But like say Holly Goes for the Lake, no one's going to talk about battle imbalance in Holly Goes for the Lake. But if I said something like quite fast about it,
Well,
then like it wouldn't really feel good to see that said about my own game, even if it was just in like a conversation between friends.
and I'm not saying this in a... I don't want to come off as even more mean by pushing back against this. Mainly, I kind of want to have a conversation about this because I don't want to just fold and be like, yes, you're right, and not go into why. Because I don't understand why, and I don't want to just go along with you guys without understanding it, if that makes sense.
I think I think from
So
at
that's
least
what-
my point of view, I think it's like I think it definitely goes both ways. I think like as a viewer you have to understand, especially when it's coming from Wolf, that he is a hard guy to please in terms of video games. You have to understand that, right? Whereas we're a lot like, and me and Tom are probably a lot easier to please. And I think that's a good thing to have
I'm a simple man.
differing opinions on fan games. So I think like as a viewer you have to understand that, but as us, we also have to like understand that we are giving I had something that I had worded out in my mind that made so much more sense than me rambling right now.
Oh, such a mood.
But I think like we also what am I trying to say? Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not just trying to bite back at the viewers. I had something that was like feedback to Wolf, but I'm literally forgetting what I was going to say. Oh yeah, okay. It's more like it's not the feedback that you have, Wolf. It's just how you say it, and I think Kenny's comment kind of went into that to where
Well,
like
yeah.
like the nitpicks was like listing out. It's just I think my communication teacher always used to say like you need a little bit of sugar to make the hard stuff go down, and it's like you can't just like be hard stuff the entire way. And that's a really tough thing to do, especially when you have more negatives than positives. But it's something that we all are going to try and get better at.
Yeah.
Like the English language is a beautiful thing, and I think there's a lot can come out of how you word something. I think even the most dickhead comment, if you word it in a magical way, it can come across as somewhat sensitive. So I guess that's the main part. But yeah.
But it's also kind of hard for me to do the whole, like, well, what if someone said this about your game? Because, like, when thinking back on what I said, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I think the only recent comment that has bothered me from someone playing my game was like them saying that it was hell.
But I guess,
Well-
for example, we talked about this. You mentioned that someone skimming over the story of your game and saying it's not really too
Yeah.
important and not really explaining it. That somewhat bothered you, right? And that would bother me too, I think.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I guess that did bother me, but
And
I
I
also
doubt-
wasn't doing that though.
I know, but I guess the thing to see here is that I think it was Airy who made that comment, right? Airy probably didn't even mean anything malicious by it.
Oh no.
Airy was just trying to say, oh yeah, I focused on the other parts of the game. I didn't really care about the story. But just because of the way they worded it, it came across as quite dismissive of your work. So there's, yeah, I guess just a lot of... And as you can see, everybody makes this fucking mistake. Everybody screws up and annoys people sometimes.
Most
It-
definitely,
It is what it is. Like Kate says, it's incredibly hard.
Yeah, I mean, this exact situation happened earlier this year with Crimson and Cobalt.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's like
Anyway.
this. The one last thing I'll say to this is like because what I'll relate it to is like, different people want different kinds of feedback. That just like that, like from my understanding, Wolf, it sounds like you don't care. Like you just want to have the list of things that are wrong, and it doesn't matter how kindly worded it is. And I'm kind of the same way, because if you sweeten up the drink too much for me, then I'm just gonna assume nothing's wrong. Like even if there is some feedback in there, right? I want to know what's wrong first and foremost, and then maybe give me a little bit of the sugar. But other people are not like that, and in this, at least the way that I give feedback, I am always going to assume you need more sugar than you do need. Sorry, I am using the same analogy that my communications teacher used when she was teaching this. I'm sorry. I'm always going to use this analogy.
Which also, well, the last thing I'll say, I don't know how other people perceive me, but I am also still 17. I'm still figuring my shit out and how I'm supposed to act around people. And the main reason why, like now especially, I feel like I'm more critical towards other people. Some of that was my experience with ballet the last 4 years. But a lot of that's also just like I'm trying to figure out like who I am. And to do that, I need to look at my surroundings. What do I like, what do I not like, in order to figure out my identity as a person.
Yeah, well said.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think like if I was, like, from my understanding, dance and ballet is a very critical, cutthroat type of sport activity. And I mean, you know, when you're conditioned in that environment, that's how that's like how you're taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that we've gone over that, are you guys ready to talk about Forgotten Saint?
Okay, and we'll do our best to be a bit more
Balance.
sensitive, I guess.
Yeah.
I will say, with the generational style, it did do stuff that I liked better than how I did it with Broken. Which, yes, I am gonna compare it to Broken. I'm sorry, but it's just the only thing I can think to compare it to. But because
No, keep going. I'm not in agreement about the generation style being done well.
because I felt like with Broken there were still some like screens that we didn't like transition over. Like we didn't even have like the main menu changed too with the generation. The summary screen. Maybe not summary screen, but like the
Summary
Pokemon party
screen
menu
did change.
and like all of that, which it's a lot of time and effort, especially for you don't really spend much time in those areas. But so that I thought was really, really well done, and I like that stood out to me. a lot of the character designs, honestly, I thought were pretty solid. Like the
Mm,
little bits
it-
we saw of them.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see more of them, I guess, because you don't get to battle them too much. But
Like, you know the girl in the Gen 3 section, the one that you talk to, not the one you play as?
yes, Celine, I think her name was. I can't remember. But
Yeah, that design like stands out to me from the
Yeah.
rest.
yeah, I guess. Before I talk about like the stuff that I really, really liked, I do want to talk about what I think was like the weaker area for the game, bro. But
Oh, we're going to say
Bef-
already.
before I talk about this, just to clarify, like this game did some stuff really, really well. Some stuff it absolutely blew me away with. But I think it started off on like its weakest foot, in my opinion at least, because the intro and a lot of like how the cutscenes and stories were told, they happened very quickly and they gave you a lot of information at once, and most of the time you didn't have any like prior context for this information.
Yeah,
I think in the first cutscene, you watch a beach, you watch a tsunami come, you watch an old man get flown away by magnetons to the sky. You then go 100 years later, you talk to your sister tells you that your mum's dead, your sister then dies, you then get found, you then talk to some other dude who then tells you that your sister had superpowers, and then now you have superpowers, and then now you go back in time, and now you can play the game. A lot happens there, and there's like even more information than what I just said there,
Yeah.
but it felt like something that could have been spread out over a bit of a longer section. But I do understand that this is like one of the side effects of jam games being what they are and made in such a short time.
Yeah.
If you have like a full-length story, it's very hard to fit that in a 3-hour game.
Yeah, that was the main thing I was gonna get into this game. It's like I can't really criticize the story because I don't understand it. A lot of stuff felt like it happened without any rhyme or reason. I believe that there is one, but I don't see it. Kind of feels like things just happened.
Yeah, I think we can get to like the more general story later, but in terms of like the intro, I think there's actually some stuff that was really well done, but I agree with Tom in terms of it being like it seemed just it happened so quickly, so snappy, right? Like that opening scene is just like it's just so fast. Like I think I like literally pressed play and was like, wait, the game's already starting. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And like it's like totally agree with Tom. It's just a lot to take in, and when you're setting the scene for a world that I do agree with the thread when it says it's lore rich, because it feels like there's been a lot of thought that's gone into this world in terms of just everything that's going on, this whole like timeline, these branching paths that happen throughout the game. There's a lot. It's very complex, and I know that they're probably in this game. They're probably trying to get the player quickly into the swing of things so that they can understand, like they need to deliver as little as possible for the maximum understanding in as quick of time as possible, and that's a really, really difficult thing to do. And I'm not sure this game does it the best way possible, but like even specifically in those very beginning scenes, the thing that I want to praise the most is the showing not telling of that whole intro sequence, and like the environmental storytelling type thing. Like you literally, like when I originally saw it, because it was so quick, and I think the graphics could have been a little better in depicting a tsunami and those very beginning, and like the dude floating up to the sky. Like in retrospect you understand what that is, but at the beginning you don't. But I think like even like the incorporation of emote animations throughout that intro sequence is actually really well done. I just think like those cutscenes without any dialogue might need to be just a little slower paced. And then, you know, I think generally bringing in maybe, I don't know. It's really tough for me to say, because I think the way I would have done it was literally have like if you could, like, ideally have like a fourth team member who's testing your game, who knows nothing about the story, have them give the feedback to the writer of like, okay, here's what I do know about this world and here's what I don't know about this world, and like here's what I need to know to like really get going. And I think like if that's done well, I think this game becomes a lot more understandable, and I think it becomes just a better game as a whole, just because you kind of have a better idea of what's going on.
Yeah, I do agree that I wish, on top of like the pacing being super fast, it also, again, it kind of felt like everything got unloaded onto you at once, with all of the explanations to everything in the world, where you don't need to know everything all at once. You can leave some things up for mystery, and that gets kind of revealed over time, sort of like... I'm trying to think of an example that's not one of my games. Fuck it, I don't care. Abstract. Like, the whole thing with, like, the legendary Pokemon and Infinity Core and their goal, that wasn't unloaded onto you in the intro. You learned that there was an Infinity Core, and there is some scuffle between them and the champion, and that you learn about Lev and Irina's character, and you go off on your journey. You learn the basics, and then things get expanded onto later. Like,
I think a lot of it was also about, and this was throughout the game a bit more too, not just from the intro cutscene, but there's a lot of what almost felt like unnecessary information for the average player. Like Cade kind of touched on, this is a lore-rich game. I think the writer has definitely put a lot of effort into filling out the details of their world. But I don't think the player needs to know every single one of those details. I don't think every single one of those details need to be told during main story cutscenes. For example, just one I can remember off the top of my head. In the intro cutscene, we're told that the player's mother is dead. With everything else that is trying to be told in the intro, I feel like that's not really necessary. You could argue that it establishes that the sister and the brother really rely on each other a bit more. I think maybe there's a non-informative way to establish that bond better, to just show that they get along better, that they trust each other. You don't need to be told that information explicitly.
or like, something else I would have done with the intro into like helping it, and like, because I just said, oh, don't reveal everything at the beginning, you know, show, like, learn about it throughout, like, what do I mean by that specifically, and what would I have it different? I would have probably cut the whole tsunami and, like, the whole thing that happened 100 years later. I don't think we needed to see that physically at the beginning of the game. I think,
Ify just typed, fuck me. Well, your girlfriend.
No context at all.
Okay, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I would have not shown the whole thing that happened 100 years ago. I would have just, oh god, Tom. I would have, like, started off, the world is kind of in shit, and you don't know exactly why, and you kind of learn that throughout going through the past, and would also add a bit more purpose through some of the stuff in the past, because another critique, like the Gen 2 section, kind of feels like it exists, and, like, you don't really get to be in there much, it's just to get some items.
I guess we can talk a bit more about it later, but yeah, the Gen 2 area definitely exists just for, like, items and building a stronger team, and I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I had a few thoughts pop in my head throughout this conversation, or like, I think I think this world is actually so lore rich that we didn't even get all of the information on the world throughout the entire game. I don't even think we
Bro.
got a close amount. Like we were talking, I think the game references like the 12 like thingies, the 12
Yeah.
the 12 sigils, I think.
12 sigils, 12
maybe.
insults, 12
and
plus
how
to see
and how
people.
sorry, again, it's been over a week since probably like 2 weeks since I played this game, so I apologize. But like there's these 12 sigils, and I think you really only get to know like you really only hear of like maybe half of them, and only like 3 I think
Really?
are important in the story, which I think goes to show how lore rich this entire world is. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. But I think I would tend to agree that the Gen 2 world is kind of only relevant to the story in maybe like 1 or 2 moments, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, right? Because the Gen 2, which is like the earliest part of the timeline, is really just there to kind of set up the location. It's more of like a prequel to the events of the story, which really happened in the 3rd and 4th gens. And I think if you view it as that, it's actually a really good. It's actually just fine. But I think if you were going in expecting Gen 2 to play a large role in this game, then yeah, you're gonna be a bit disappointed. But I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing. Just using it as like a little bit more of world building and side content instead of being a large part of the story.
Something I did kind of like about like the I can't remember exactly what it was, but there's one point in the story where after have already spent in like it's quite later, you had gone to the Gen 2 world, you knew the 2 main characters that you talked to there, Raphael, and I can't remember his other name. But then
The
like
other person.
later you get to find out what they actually like accomplished as adults in a history book. And I think that's a really cool way to do like the depth of the lore. That part felt well told because we already knew who Raphael was. We understood his role a little bit because we know he's a mute person. We've played as him. And now we're kind of seeing him in a history book and learning about what he did. That felt good, I reckon.
Another thing I really liked. There were lots of things I really liked actually. I liked the hit where like if you're stuck on what to do, you can just be like, "What do I do to progress the game?" That was a really nice button. I was just like, because whenever I was lost, I could just press that button and go, "Oh, okay. I just need to go there."
Yeah.
Nice.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
100%. In an ideal world, it shouldn't need to exist. If somehow you make the perfect game, people aren't going to need hints. But this is a
But
Jan
hey.
game. It's not. We're not getting the perfect game, and everyone's different. So definitely a good addition.
Yeah. Honestly, I may think about. Well, I don't know if I'm making any more jam games. If I do, I may actually do that. Other stuff I liked. I really like the like when you see like an enemy using a move, if you can learn it, like that gets added to your like bank of moves. That was really
Yeah.
cool.
If
I
we're
really like
if we're
that.
ready to talk about the battle systems and the new mechanics,
Let's fucking
like,
talk about this battle
Oh.
system, bro, because I'm so
That
ready
was-
to
No,
talk
I was
about
about
it.
to go. I was doing a precursor into. I have a really quick note. The library puzzle.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I did not like it.
Well, yeah. No, that I had
'Cause-
to use the hint system for that one too.
Yeah.
Use the hint system too.
Because I was like, when you're in a library and there's a computer, I feel like it's just common kind of thinking patterns to go, oh, the password is somewhere in here in the books. I have to use the books somehow.
Yeah,
Like,
I
would
mean,
not,
go ahead. Sorry.
like, I wouldn't think that I would have to go to this one specific trainer outside of the library and then beat him, and then he would tell me his brother's, like, Pokemon's name, and then that name would be the password.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that like this dude has the password, especially understanding that like yeah, his brother who had this Magneton you said worked at the library. That all makes that like it all like connects and makes
Yeah.
sense. I think the one problem is that there is no hints or anything inside the library that goes and says, "Oh, hey, like
Go outside,
go
touch
talk
grass."
to this dude." But then again, it I don't think there's a way you can kind of naturally fit that in where you're just like, oh yeah, by the way, this dude outside has the password without just straight up saying that. So
Well, I think
Maybe
yeah,
just
I mean,
like
I
a
think it
hint,
could be.
like a little like something left behind by the brother to prove that like he is connected to the library, and like when you interact with it, it's like, oh, this is probably some kids. I should give it back to him.
I think
yeah, something like
yeah,
that.
just
Maybe.
like a small tweak to the puzzle would make it a lot more smooth. It could be as simple as like when you go to the PC for the first time, you see a sticky note on it saying like, "Hey, little bro, get off my laptop. Don't make me change the password," or something.
Stop disabling my iPod Touch.
But yeah, I think that puzzle was nearly there. Just needed a little bit of tweaking.
But yeah, the mild existential horror, I don't know what that's referring to in the game thread.
I don't know. I think it was Liam who was on co-comp for most of this game when I played it. He was like, "Do you think you not knowing what's going on is the mild existential horror?" And I was like, "That's like, I don't think so, and that's like really bad to say." I think the mild existential horror is really supposed to come in with it's. There's supposed to be like an impending sense of doom, I think, throughout the entire game, with you kind of feeling like you're this, like you are, like you being able, you essentially being Mew, right, are able to control these three powers. You are clearly a very powerful entity, right? But there's this, I feel like there's supposed to be this like impending sense of like, no matter how powerful I am, someone else is more powerful than me, and he is evil, and they are evil, and I am good. But no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to do that, because I think I'm trying to remember. I might just be making this up, but I feel like there's that constant reminder throughout the game, and really the events that you're doing throughout the main story are really just like, yeah, if I do this one thing to make this future world better, there's still going to be something else that has happened in, like, the branch of the timeline isn't exactly the route that you had assumed. So there's always this impending like, no matter what I do, this evil being still figures a way out to weasel out control and become, tyrants. So
Really?
Yeah.
Because from
I'm not saying that's how I felt, because I didn't feel that throughout the game, but I can kind of see what they were going for. But I think I'm not sure. I think it probably could have been done a little bit better. I'd have to think about more about how like I would do it.
I think the reason why it failed for me is I didn't feel any stress about like how are we gonna fix this, how is this gonna get resolved, because I always knew it was, which yes, that's a lousy criticism, but the specific reason why is early on in the game there is an example of, oh, we have this problem, we need to go into this cave that's like below us, but we don't know how to do it. This character rocks up and goes, hey, I exist now and I have a sigil that can like teleport us down there. You don't have to worry. And that's the main one that like comes to mind, and it kind of just feels like, oh, whatever problem we're gonna have, we'll just kind of be like, it's fine. There'll be a sigil that solves it.
I think
Just
that
about
character's just incorporation into the story, I'm like still very confused about.
Yeah.
And because I'm so confused about that, I'm not sure how much I can comment on it. I think her sigil is actually so cool though.
I
but-
loved her sigil. Oh my god, I wish we
that's
got
kind of
to
it.
double battle with her more.
Yeah.
What was her sigil again?
You trap Pokemon, and then Pokemon that are trapped, you always deal critical hits to.
Wait, when was that in the game?
When you go in the underwater and you have Madeline as your partner, you have two sigils that you can use, the Mew one and the Lugia one.
Wait, you can use the Lugia one?
Yeah, you get a whole tutorial screen telling you about it.
Oh.
But just to touch on about the existential horror, because while I have like harped on about how like the execution of the story, it's a bit messy, and I think it leaves most people more confused than anything, and not in a like intended way. I did really like what the story was about. Because kind of as Cade was saying, I believe the story was about someone who has the power to change time, but no matter what they do, greed always prevails, and someone is sacrificed at the cost of every single decision. And about the existential stuff, they kind of mention at one point about the girl we were talking about as well, the Madeline girl. You write her in and out of existence with your choices, because in the original timeline, she doesn't get to exist because her ancestor didn't survive. But then you save her ancestor by changing the past, and now she's alive, and until then, she never existed. But now, in the same sense, every choice you make has the possibility of writing someone else out of existence. And I kind of really like that. I thought that was a really fun story. It reminded me a lot of the movie Butterfly Effect.
Yeah.
I just wish it was told in a clearer way.
I actually kind of want to comment on that because my next like video essay is going to be kind of about how each jam game incorporates the theme of rebirth, and I actually really liked how this game kind of incorporates the theme of rebirth in terms of like, yeah, you go back in time to a previous graphical style, you do something, and that kind of like rebirths the future world. And I think that's a really interesting thing. And you assume that, like, when you do event X, you assume that there's going to be, like, this domino effect that happens. But because, you know, people have, like, free will and people make their own decisions, right? Like, that domino effect that you assume happens doesn't always happen the way you think it's going to. And I think that's honestly like a really beautiful way of seeing rebirth, I feel like. As not a good force or a bad force, but as just kind of a fact of life that everybody can kind of, you know, like character X makes one decision and that can cause character Y to be put in a predicament where they can make different decisions that continue to affect the world, and by being able to time travel, that like changes the world in the future. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like chaos theory, everything's just so complicatedly connected that it's unpredictable. But yeah, that, I really liked what the story was about, even if I did have some troubles with what it was, how it was told.
For me, I can't tell if I like the story or not because I was just confused about it. So I also can't say I dislike it because I just don't know what it is.
I think that's just like my biggest kind of critique about this game is really that like we need to have the execution of just the micro like line to line dialogue be a little bit tighter and like more able to be understood just a little bit more before we can really give this game a full critique. We can talk about what we think the story is about, and in my thought of how I think and what I think the story is about, I think it's a pretty decent story, but we don't know that for sure.
But this was also sort of part of my initial concern with when I heard, like, this is gonna be a part of a big universe that we have lots of plans for. Is, like, if the first game isn't that good, then it kind of taints the rest of the games. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but that is something that could happen even later down the line. But, like, also another problem that we didn't even discuss there is overloading, like, almost prep work for future projects in this one.
Yeah, you make a good point, right? Like, you, in each progressive game, or each game after the next, you've set a precedent, you've set events that occur in this universe in such a way that each future game is going to need to respect those events. And I think it also opens up more and more plot hole possibilities. And you know, you can write around the plot holes, but you will still need to address them at some point. And I feel like, I don't know, I am not like a big Marvel fan, but from what I've heard with the movies, that's kind of what Marvel has written themselves into. But I will say 100%, I am very interested in this universe. I think this universe has a lot of potential, but I hope the games are very well thought out so that this universe doesn't flop.
And before we go into the gameplay, because I'm
The
guessing
gameplay.
that's what we're gonna go into, since we're wrapping up the story stuff, Ethan did send us, the writer of Forgotten Saint commented on his stream. And they said, Character said, "Hey, thank you so much for your playthrough and thoughts. I did the writing for the game, and I very much agree with your feedback. Me trying to cram a little too much lore into a short game did affect the story's coherence, unfortunately, but I'm very glad to hear that you're looking forward to the next game. We'll definitely be taking everyone's thoughts into account, like stretching the story out a little more to slow the pace quite a bit, so thanks to you and your chat for the feedback." So basically what we've been saying.
Yeah, I
seems
think
to be what Ethan
like
echoed.
the dev makes a good point as well in this comment. Like, it is extremely difficult to fit the amount of lore that you want to deliver to a player in such a short jam game. I know we were talking about the comparisons between this game and Abstract earlier, and the fact that they're both jam games, but what we didn't talk about is how Abstract is a much longer game than Forgotten Saint, so you are able to stretch out and sprinkle in story here and there a lot more effectively compared to Forgotten Saint. And I think that's just like a fact of the matter, right? Like, we know that this is going to be difficult. I did have one more comment though on like, I guess not really story, but like dialogue wise, is I think if you were able to more effectively like kind of see like, okay, here's what the player needs to know, and here's what would be like nice for the player to know, and here's just like some extra information that like we have on the world that we can deliver to the player, right? And seeing like, hey, let's put this information that the player needs to know in main story dialogue, the stuff that'd be nice for the player to know in, I don't know, pretty obvious NPC dialogue or in main story dialogue. And then a lot of that stuff that the player doesn't need to know, put in flavor text. One of the things that I was kind of disappointed in this game generally was when you come advertised as a lore-rich game, I expect a lot of flavor text. That's maybe an unfair expectation of me to have, but I think this game was kind of lacking on flavor text overall, and I think there was a lot of, like, as the writer I think said themselves, there was a lot of unnecessary information crammed into main story dialogue. So I think it would have been cool to have that extra information that the player doesn't need to know, put that in some flavor text, and put that, I don't know, the library had a lot of extra lore, and I think they did a really good job of that, but I think the library's kind of like the only location where you can find that lore, and I think it should be maybe sprinkled throughout, right? I don't know, I remember going into like a bunch of different houses and being like, wait, why is there no flavor text here?
I think I agree. Yeah, it did feel like a lot of like side reading was essentially prescribed as mandatory reading in the main story, and that is like a very perfect thing for flavor text to be used for.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on the gameplay?
I loved it. I
It's so
absolutely
fucking
loved
good,
it.
dude. It's so fucking good.
I was like, as soon as like we finally saw like the systems with the sigils, I was like, oh, okay. I kind of understand why they rushed through the intro, because they just want me to play the fun game. It was good.
That's the thing that I'm like, we've only had 2 Alterax and Geosway games so far, but both of them have had absolute banger gameplay. Like, these custom mechanics are so good. You see Petra Mandala, the recruitment process, and the inventory process, and like the skill tree. That's so cool. The sigil system in this game is excellent. I think it's probably better than even like the recruitment process, which was my favorite.
I think it's definitely better.
It's just,
for me,
it's so well done,
yeah.
and it's so fun to play.
For me, the recruitment system felt like a very like interesting idea, but it felt like somewhat flawed in its execution. It didn't feel too well balanced at parts, and it felt like some parts of the gameplay didn't work well with it. It very much felt like something made for a jam game. This sigil system feels like it's been thought out so much. It works perfectly. There's so many nice little details about it. About like the added bonus of being able to heal your Pokemon using it, so that it's a bit more tankier, even if you're switching to new moveset. The fact that you only get annoyed about learning a new move once per move. The fact that you can go into a menu and relearn your moves as well. The fact that each move has 3 different versions that coincides with the different timelines you can travel to, so it works with that aspect of the story as well. It just feels like it's been really thought out and just
Oh.
executed perfectly as a mechanic.
That actually did give me a question though. With like, why do you, when you switch over to the different people and the different bodies, why do you also have your Pokemon with you? Because it's not
They
like your
do-
Pokemon are transferring over because they go to like previous evolutions, like they weren't in that timeline. But that's not how that works.
They
Because,
do
like,
give a
different people.
lore explanation of it, and I didn't quite understand it because obviously the lore of this game is quite convoluted, but they sort of described it as an effigy of Mew. It's not really real for Pokemon, but it's more a remnant of Mew's energy being used or something. But yeah,
Huh.
so they're not like real Pokemon so much when you switch timeline.
I kind of generally just view it as like Mew's timeline is a straight line of you going from point A to point B, whereas the actual timeline of the story is jumping back and forth. And because you are essentially playing as Mew, you get to keep the Pokemon, but like I guess it that doesn't explain away like how you will go back in time and you will go into a pre-Evo. Maybe there's like Tom's explanation, I guess, is good enough. Maybe like you need a human as a proxy through Mew to actually battle or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. And then the other thing with the sigils is like we only really saw 2 other sigils from my understanding. We saw the water one, which I absolutely love, very creative and very fun
Yes.
to use, being able to trap Pokemon and then deal critical hits to them. And I believe we saw like once the other girl in the Gen 3 timeline, her Diancie can lower your defense, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
I
I'm
haven't played
curious
Super
if
I
it's
don't
Ultimate,
know.
so I don't know.
passive. Yeah. Because she's the only one. No, I was going to say she's the only one that Mega Evolves, but the final boss Mega Evolves too. I was going to say, because she's Diancie, I was wondering if her passive was allowing for Mega Evolution, but that's not quite right.
Wait, the Diancie Mega evolved?
No, but the Mawile does.
Oh,
And I was
yeah,
wondering if
wait, I
maybe
totally
the-
forgot about that.
Oh right.
Maybe
I think
the
I
Diancie
literally-
being, X and Y.
I think I literally freaked out when the final boss Mega evolved, and I'm just here the whole time when literally like there was a Pokemon before that Mega evolved. Okay, well, that's a classic Cade moment right there.
Oh.
But yeah, are there any other general thoughts you guys have before we want to do closing thoughts on the game?
I do want to comment a little bit more because I think we kind of brushed over it, and or maybe it was just the first thing we talked about. But I think the generational style is like there's something to be said about being able to like switch through generations. And I know it's been a while since I played Broken, and I wasn't the dev on it like Wolf was, so I don't have as strong of a memory for that game as he probably does, but I think it was really well done, right? We talked about how the graphics, like everything in the graphics changes, and I think that's really cool. But I also think it's a nice note that like the music changes as well. And I thought the music was really good in terms of like you go from Gen 2 to Gen 3 music. And what I kind of liked, and you guys might not be the same because you go to Gen 4 graphics, but you get Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire music. I actually thought that the Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire soundtrack, specifically just like the themes in that soundtrack actually fit the like what they're kind of going for in the Gen 4 look pretty well. Now, obviously, I don't know, maybe the Diamond and Pearl or Heart Gold Soul Silver soundtrack would have also fit that vibe, but I like that just having the Heavy Rain theme from Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire be like that opening like dreadful theme. I feel like it was one of the best themes for the job personally.
But yeah, talking about like the generational style changes, there weren't like two notes that I would have. One, because it seemed to be like they weren't going for a stylistic version of those generations, but like as close as possible. But like there were just a couple of things that were different about them that just made it weird to me. Like there were no overworld shadows for Gen 4.
I'm gonna stab you.
Hey,
Okay,
Gen
maybe
4.
okay.
Gen 4.
Okay. Let's not kill this guy.
I think
And the last like main point with the generational styles, and I've talked about this before, like on people's streams, is like I felt like it would be a really neat like difference to really go into that different generational style is also changing the aspect ratio. Similar to how which game? Broken. I've made too many games. Similar to how like Broken did it. And like, if you don't know, Broken basically, instead of like changing the window size, it just had like a border around the screen to make the game screen like the size that it would be.
I think that can go either way. I think that is nice, and I definitely think like the border is definitely the best way to do it for that thing. But I think both have their positives, both have their disadvantages. Changing the aspect ratio is a really nice like nod to what you're actually referencing to the Gen 2 itself. But at the same time, having the same aspect ratio makes it a lot easier to compare the maps across the different versions, because that is also another thing that the generation changing does and like accomplishes. You get to compare these different versions of the exact same map, and when it's all in the same aspect ratio, that part smooths. That part's a lot more smooth, I think. But I also do agree. I think it would be cool if the aspect ratio changed too.
Yeah, I
think
tend to agree with Tom's take here. Like, I think there's pros and cons to it. Like, it's definitely a nod to like to how each like Pokemon region or like generation, I guess, had their games and had their graphic style, including the aspect ratio. But I also think that like not only does it like the whole map comparison, I also think generally changing the aspect ratio of a game can like break immersion. Now, I don't know how immersed I was in this game, just generally being confused a lot of the time, but I also feel as though I don't know. I don't think the aspect ratio was too bad of a thing. Plus, I think in terms of how I think it probably would have been implemented in terms of like Altrax doing it, I think they probably would have wanted to like change the screen size as a whole, because they seem to know a lot about like coding and stuff, and so that's why
And that would be annoying.
I that's why like that is like legitimately like not impossible, but like to do that on the fly, I feel like you're reaching very low and into a low level of code to do that. But
I mean, I've like changed the game window size for a PSDK game before.
I mean, hey, I don't actually know how tough it is. I'm just assuming.
It's
like mid game, or like.
Oh yeah, mid game.
Oh wow, okay.
PSDK.
Pistic moment.
Pistic moment.
To wrap up kind of my thoughts, I felt it could have. I can't really have strong feelings about it because I just was confused most of the time. So I can't really go into it and be like, oh, I like this, I didn't like this. But I think I generally went over what I felt worked, what I felt didn't. But yeah, I feel like just in the future with this universe, just trying to sharpen up some of the story beats, make things a bit more clear. don't lean so much into lore bits all the time. Like, have moments where you relax and it's not completely dependent on the lore of the world, I feel, would probably make it easier. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I guess if we just give him final thoughts, similarly to Andy, I think the main thing this game is like lacking or could improve is definitely like clarity. But for me, like as soon as I got into the sigil system, I honestly stopped caring about the story a bit and just kind of wanted to have fun with the system and the different sigils. Although the story did pull me back a little bit when it got to the stuff about changing the world and whatnot, and not really having control over it and routing people in and out of existence. I did think that was interesting, but the just amazing job for the sigil system and the way it was incorporated, as well as how it interconnects with the generational system, just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think like the reason I wanted you guys to play this game instead of Tower of Ashes is there's a lot to talk about here, and I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of nuance in Forgotten Saint. There is some stuff that is like so good, and then there's some stuff that leaves you thinking like this definitely could have been better, and I think that makes for a really good and strong discussion. And I think like overall, right, I think me and Wolf are a little bit more, we tend to get hung up on the story a little bit more, so that's why, you know, I might still be a little confused, but I think there are aspects of this game that are absolutely incredible. The gameplay of this game is great. The generational system, I think, is really well implemented. And I think other than just kind of being confused, this is a really good game, and I am still very, very interested in this universe and where it can go. And like if you know what needs to be delivered to the player kind of gets cleaned up, I think there's very much potential for a future game in this series that can be excellent. Especially if you keep the sigil system. Like, please keep that.
Yeah, the sigil system's awesome.
Like, I want to see the other sigils in play.
Yeah. Oh, crap. Before we finish, just like two things I wanted to mention but I forgot. One, I really liked. Well, I guess these work together. I've enjoyed playing a game with no levels, and I enjoyed playing a game with no wild encounters, and those two things worked very well together because wild encounters would feel pointless if I couldn't really level up my Pokemon.
Yeah.
We didn't
That
even
was
talk about
really nice.
how there's no levels that's incorporated
Dude,
into.
there's so much to talk about with this game, honestly.
And yeah, like we didn't even talk about that, and like that is, I think that was
Honestly,
really well
I like
done.
that.
If it weren't
I
for time
liked it.
constraints tonight, we could definitely talk about that, and I think it's hilarious that 2 of the 3 jam games I've played already don't have levels. But yeah, I think it works for this game. I don't think it works for every game though, but it definitely works
No, it
for
wouldn't
this
work
game.
for every game, but this game does it.
So yeah, there's
Speaking of
probably
other-
details that we've not talked about, but
But
sorry.
we tried to talk about everything we could in the small, short time we had. Anyways, okay. Speaking of other games, we should decide next week's game. And technically, if
Yeah.
we're still going off of quiz show order, I'm next.
Yeah.
So, how long, like, do we want the game to be? Like, is there a limit?
I would prefer
When are we
around
recording
3
the next
hours.
episode? Because that would
Probably a
decide.
week from now.
If it's next Thursday, then I mean, I don't know. I can probably stream at least 2, probably 3 times.
Okay.
I would prefer just like 3 hours in case I can only stream one time.
Okay, so that knocks off both of my ideas.
What were your ideas?
I was either gonna go Slowpoke Shack or Berserk.
Slowpoke Shack really longer than 3 hours?
Oh yeah, it's like at least
Yeah, it's
5
like
hours. I'm not even
6,
done
I
with
think.
Oh,
it.
what the
Yeah.
fuck? Never mind. Why did I think that game was shorter?
Nope. So I mean, there's Five Nights with Eevees, Samsara, Legends of Apotheosis, Mineral, Trine.
How
How
long's
long's
Battle
Trine
Citadel?
Master? Oh, Battle Citadel. Oh, that's long.
Okay.
It's like 8 gyms with like 4 trainers in each gym.
Okay.
Like I've played.
Triad
trainers and I'm
Master
not
could be
done.
fun. I like.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Triad.
say Triad Master. How long is that? Because Covenant's also pretty long. We're running out of short games. Oh, Triad
mean,
Master.
there's-
Doesn't say how long it is.
There's
That's great.
Tower of Ashes that I've already
How
played.
long is it?
Well, it depends how many runs you want to do. One run, you can probably get done in 3 hours. And actually, if you didn't have the yappers Liam and Noah, you could probably get it done in under 3 hours.
Maybe. I don't know. I kind of want to hold off on Tower of Ashes a little bit longer.
Forgotten Saint took me like an extra hour to beat because I ended up just watching a YouTube video halfway through called Top 10 Smoke Spots in Dark Souls 3. It's a very funny video.
There's no
Dang
way.
it, there's not really a... what do I want to...
Is Legends Apotheosis super long?
Yeah, I don't really want to do that one next.
Okay. I don't actually... It looks like a long game.
Probably.
We can try Berserk if you want, Andy, and I'll just
Okay.
do my best.
Yeah, Cade, it'll probably take you 2-3 streams. If I
Okay.
had to guess.
I mean, I don't think we need to
average-
finish the game. For... Like, as long as you've played most of the game. Like, we're not going to be able to comment on the story, but...
Well, yeah. Okay. I feel like that's most of Berserk, but alright. The game is like 5 hours. Like,
I could
average,
probably
it's
finish it.
gone up to 6 hours.
So it's a... Okay. Well, I will estimate 6
So
hours
it's
then.
decent.
3 streams. I can do that in 3
Yeah.
streams. Actually, it didn't take me that long to finish Abstract. I looked at my game time and
True.
compared to the estimate, and I was like, that's actually not that long. I did pretty well. I did skip like 3 routes, though, so maybe that's why.
Oh, well, everyone skipped those routes. So yeah, I guess Berserk is next episode, so y'all can look
Hopefully,
forward to that.
yep.
Hopefully. If not, we can do 5 Nights with Eevees as a backup plan.
Yeah, or just like a mix of some shorter ones.
Or, yeah. Alright, so yeah, thank y'all for listening to us talking about Forgotten Saint. I keep almost calling it False Prophet.
That's a different game.
Wait, is that a game?
I'm pretty sure that's a Pokemon fan game.
Pokemon
Maybe.
False Prophet?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I'm seeing a comic dub called False Prophet. So yeah, I don't think there's a fake game. And if there
Something
is,
from Twitch plays
sorry,
Pokemon.
but I don't.
That's all I can see.
Yeah. So yeah, I was doing a close off. I don't know how we got to that. Oh, because I said. Anyways, yes, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us talk about False Note. I got it. Forgotten Saint.
There you go.
And yeah, we'll see you all next week with whatever we
Next
talk
week.
about. Yeah. So yeah, see you all later.
See ya.
Bye.